Hello and welcome to Woodshed Reviews, where we look at films old and new, good and bad. And today we're going to look at the fourth Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones and the Sword of what? Destiny?
If you say so. Hello and welcome to Woodshed Reviews, where we look at films old and new, good and bad. And on today's show, we're looking at the fifth Indiana Jones film, Dial of Destiny. Wishful thinking, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Was a fourth one, was
There
it?
was a fourth one, yeah. Be fair to say that we're probably big fans of the original trilogy from the 80s. Mm-hmm. Not so keen on the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
No, it was lacking.
But anyway, so we're on the fifth one now, some 15 years after the last one.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I've no idea what your thoughts on it are, so you've no idea of mine, I don't think, do you?
No.
I haven't let slip anything yet.
No.
So who's going to start?
Are we going to say how we felt about it?
Yeah, I think so. We'll say a sort of like, I could sum it up in one word and see if you can match me there. Bored.
Wow. I wasn't bored.
No, okay.
No. I went in with very low expectations. I wasn't expecting this film at all. Fifth film,
Yeah,
especially
fifth
after
film,
the last
yeah.
one. So low expectations and ended up really enjoying it and felt like, okay, this is a better ending to the Indiana Jones Harrison Ford saga.
This is going to be interesting then. Stay tuned, folks. Battle is on.
And I thought this was definitely back on track. There's a few issues I had with it, but I sat back and enjoyed it.
Okay.
I got into it. Yeah, there's a lot for me to like in it.
And I've come to believe it's not so much what you believe. It's how hard you believe it.
I was fairly tuned out of this film almost from the beginning. Sort of maybe the first 10 minutes or so, our opening scene where we've got a young, de-aged Indiana on a mission in 1944, tail end of the war. The Nazis are fleeing. It sets up the Dial of Destiny. I can't remember what it's actually called, Antikythera or something.
That's
like that.
right, yeah.
It's an Archimedes Dial that's rumoured to be able to bend space and time.
Yeah, where in reality it could calculate astronomical positions and eclipses and things like that.
So I've taken a little bit of artistic license.
Yeah, why not?
But that's okay, that's fine, that's completely fine. Yeah, so it was kind of like, first sort of 10 minutes or so, I thought, okay, I'm kind of like into this. And then I felt that whole opening sequence just dragged on too long.
Yeah.
If you compare it to a similar opening sequence with The Last Crusade, where we've got a young Indiana Jones played by River Phoenix, that's a great sort of section, and it's like, it just felt like the perfect length, perfect introduction. You get that nice little segue to the older Indiana Jones. This one felt like it just went on way too long for me, and that kind of summed up the film a little bit, because it's a good half hour longer than any of the other films.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt it for me.
I definitely agree with you. Definitely, pretty much the first shot we see a de-aged Indiana Jones, and I was like, oh gosh, they're going with this. Hopefully, it'll just be a handful of shots, and then we'll skip forward. But they went for a full-blown mega action sequence, and it was hit and miss, kind of.
Yeah.
There were some shots of him that looked amazing, really well done, and then there's other shots that brought you out of it because it just looked a bit too Polar Express, maybe.
I wouldn't go that far. A little rubbery, and you can kind of see you've got that sort of thing. I think the initial shot was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is looking really good. But then as he starts to move about, different lighting, I think maybe something about the actor, who's, I'm assuming it's a younger actor playing him, and his physique didn't quite look right to me in certain shots. There was a lot of CGI when they're running about on top of the plane, they're on board a train. There was things like that kind of like take me out of it a bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also have a problem people are running on top of trains and they're not getting like shuddered off it by the wind or just the tracks.
This is where it sets up the Archimedes Dial, the Dial of Destiny, that it's an artifact.
And it's split into parts, isn't it? Two parts.
And then a part that you need to find the second part or something, is it?
Yes.
A bit confusing. A bit I felt it was unnecessarily, they could have just had the 2 parts, you know.
It'd be a short film.
Be shorter than 2.5 hours, yeah, for sure.
That's the nature of these films. There's always like a artifact or idol or...
Yeah, definitely, yeah. But it kind of felt like we've got to find a thing to find a thing. And I was thinking, going back to like The Rise of Skywalker, it wasn't as bad as that, because that's where I've got find a thing to find this thing that leads them to this thing. It was a little bit Virgin in that for me. I think they just needed to maybe take a little bit of that out. But anyway, it sets us up, and then we join Indy in his present day, 1969.
Yeah, so he's quite old now, living alone, a bit moody.
We find out later that his son, Mutt, has died in, well, he just says in the war, I'm assuming Vietnam.
Yeah, and he's separated from Marion, his wife, because it's quite a tough thing to go through, and they weren't able to cope. So that was quite a big emotional impact, which we feel later on when we learn this. I thought that was really well done. That was, it's quite a dose of reality. It was quite well done, I thought. Yeah,
they're kind of written him up as he's kind of downtrodden. He's being sort of like forced into not early retirement, but forced into retirement from a job that he doesn't seem to really enjoy. Students are not really interested in what he's teaching. Mm-hmm. They're not interested in old fossils, and I don't just mean Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
It belongs in a museum. So do you.
You know, he's enjoying a bit of daytime drinking when he meets his goddaughter, who his father was on the mission with him at the start of the film.
That's right, and she's called Helena Shaw. I thought it was very good in this role.
She's obviously set up as a sort of, she wants to get this in the Dial of Destiny that her father had been working on, and so that's why she approaches Indiana. Mm-hmm. But she wants to do it to sell it on the black market. She's just a bit cutthroat, sees it for its value in terms of money, and then she'll move on to the next thing.
She's all about money.
Yeah.
That's her thing.
And then the film kind of infers towards the end that she learns a higher purpose or a deeper meaning. It infers that. I felt like I missed it, that actually happening. Maybe on a first viewing, maybe there was something a little more.
I think it's when she learns the story of Indiana Jones's son.
Okay.
And the importance of family. And there's a turning point there for her during that scene. It was quite quick.
Maybe I kind of blinked and missed it.
But yeah, I liked her character. Her and Indy, they both had a bit of an edge, and there were a lot of conflict between the two of them throughout. So that worked for me.
We need to get out of here. Stop! Sorry.
Helena!
And likewise with quite a lot of the characters. I felt a very forgettable. She's got a companion who's effectively her short round to her Indiana Jones.
Yeah, a young kid, Teddy.
Teddy, yeah, who's got pretty much the same backstory we learn as how Indy met Short Round.
Okay, yeah.
When you think about it, sort of like, I think there's basically the same line in both films, more or less, about they found each of their respectives when they were trying to pickpocket them in Morocco or something like that, and then they've kind of been in tow since then. But Teddy's no Short Round. I just found a complete. I don't know why he was in that film at all, personally, and just very forgettable. No character. He wasn't fun, and his whole sort of story was he wants to learn to fly. So he practices with like fake cockpit setups, and then at the end of it, he flies a plane.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, that's some foreshadowing.
You stole it. Then you stole it.
And then I stole it.
There was some similar ones with the bad guys. There's a lot of bad guys in this.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't really stand. They were very, I guess, they had a character. I mean, you saw them and you recognise them as bad guys, and they had a presence, but there wasn't much more than that you didn't really get to know them.
No, I mean, Mads Mikkelsen heads up as our main bad guy, who's like a Nazi turned to work for NASA, which is very kind of on point.
That's right.
But like Werner von Braun, and he's basically that kind of character. But then he goes, no, I'm actually a Nazi all along.
Yeah, so he wants to basically go back in time
and
to 1939.
Yeah.
Take out Hitler.
But not for the good reasons.
No.
Not to take him out for a good reason.
No.
But to correct the mistakes that Hitler made in terms of not winning the war.
Yeah, find someone that can do it better than Hitler.
Yeah.
Hitler made mistakes, and with this, I will correct them all.
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen does what he can with the part. I don't feel he was that memorable, and I feel like he kind of like doesn't get a lot to do in it, and is kind of ended a little abruptly.
Dr. Jones, get him.
I think that's maybe not a huge deal breaker, but for me, there wasn't really many of the action set pieces, which Indy is obviously famous for. There was a lot of them, but there wasn't any that sort of stood out. And I know you're probably going to hate me for this, but I think one of the better certainly action set pieces is actually in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, when they're doing the motorbike chase through the university streets and the library and stuff. That's really good, and I think that was better than anything that was in Dial of Destiny personally. So for example, I had like an underwater sequence. I thought, this could be good, Indy in a sort of different environment. Mm-hmm. It didn't look very good, I don't think. It wasn't very action-packed or thrilling or anything. It just kind of felt a bit, okay, they've done that, and then they moved on to the next one.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I thought it was good. I liked the underwater stuff, and I liked the idea of the eels, because he's obviously got a fear of snakes. So that was quite an intense moment when he's greeted with a big barrage of eels coming at him. Yeah,
because that's our main creepy crawly moment, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, and there was one later on with...
Yeah, that felt like it was just kind of like slotted in there.
Yeah, it didn't make much of it.
No.
I mean, my problem is the action is maybe too enhanced by CGI, that kind of thing. You're never quite sure, is this real, or is it completely computer generated, or is it half and half? And yeah, it's not the same when you knew everything was pretty much done for real.
Yeah, there's very few moments in the original trilogy that don't hold up action-wise. There's some sort of blue screen or rear projection stuff that obviously doesn't hold up from the time and that, but most of the stuff they're doing it practically because they had to. I didn't feel it was quite as bad, this one, as Crystal Kingdom of the Crystal, whatever it's called, where like parts that look like, when they're having that fight in the Jeep, and I felt like I was playing Uncharted video game from 2009 or something. It's like, there was nothing quite as horrendous as that, and it didn't kind of go into any sort of like major dips like nuking the fridge or swinging with monkeys or the snake in the sand pit.
Grab the snake! I'm calling it that! It's a snake, what do you want me to call it? Say rope! What? Say grab the rope! Grab the rope!
But at the same time, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull had a few moments that was like, that was nice, and I felt that was kind of lacking in Dial of Destiny on a first viewing. I'm willing to concede that I might have just been in a bad mood, and that maybe I'll watch it a second time and I'll pick some stuff out of it. But as I said, I was kind of flatlining through most of it, and then at the end, it just kind of lost me.
Okay,
so we'll get into that.
That's strange, because it lost you. Actually, that's when it made it for me.
Well, that's why we do these. That's why we do this show. That's the magic.
Because I think you felt like you were going to trip and you just didn't know what was going to happen. Obviously, you had the Nazis thinking they're going to go back to 1939.
Fasten your seatbelt. There might be some turbulence.
But anyway, they end up back in 200 BC or something like that. Time of Archimedes, and the Romans are. Is this the Syracuse sort of war, or
the Second Punic Wars?
Yeah.
So we're like thrown into this battle scene. So it's very surreal seeing these the warplane coming into this era.
Yeah. They call it a dragon.
Yeah, I loved that. I thought it was just totally unexpected. I said, "Oh, this is really interesting." And where's this going to go? I was kind of a bit apprehensive. Are they going to really do something silly here? But at the same time, I was quite excited about what I was seeing.
Okay.
So I was quite thrilled by it.
A few times in my life I've seen things.
I've been tortured with voodoo.
The plane crashes, kills the Nazis. I thought that was a bit underwhelming.
It gets rid of them.
It gets rid of them, but I mean, we're not allowed to melt a Nazi face these days, you know. I mean, that's a classic way to go.
So we see Indy, Archimedes comes to him, and he recognises like probably one of his heroes from history.
Yeah.
And they have a dialogue exchange. Like Archimedes asks, "How far have you come?"
Yeah, he understands that he's from the future.
Yeah, and Indy wants to stay. Basically, they've got an opportunity to go back to 1969, I guess.
Because of Teddy's flying skills.
But Indy wants to stay, and
Wants to be part of history.
yeah, because this is probably part of his dream. You know that he didn't expect this to.
Yeah.
So I thought that was well done. I thought there was a genuine emotion there because he's an archaeologist, history buff, and he's here.
Yeah. On paper, that works perfectly.
Uh-huh.
I just felt it wasn't set up very well. The whole thing works. It works well because it's like Indy, his situation back home, the age that he's at, what is his propositions.
He's got nothing to live for.
Yeah, well, that's how he feels.
Yeah.
And I understand that. And then, well, if I stay here, even though he's not going to live because of his injury, but he's kind of like, I'd rather have a day here than the rest of my life back home.
Yeah.
I understand that. I didn't feel it was really set up well, but then it's resolved by Helena Shaw basically quite rightly kind of like arguing with him and saying, look, you know, you can't, if you stay here, you get to mess with the space-time continuum and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, and I guess she's maybe like realising that she wants to connect with Indy or make amends for her ways and stuff like that, so she wants to bring him back home. But they resolve that by her knocking him out cold with a punch, dragging him back home, and then taking him to his flat, and then getting Marion and Salah to come and see him on his hospital bed, effectively. And I just, that was me. I was done, because that's not giving Indiana Jones some agency over his own actions and stuff. Learning from, yeah, okay, maybe I'd like to stay here, but I can always go back. I can always make changes. I can always become a better person. I can always reconnect with Marion. All this kind of stuff. It doesn't give him any options in that. He just gets knocked out and dragged. And imagine if that roles were reversed. You know, we'd have a big problem on our hands. But it's okay in this situation.
Yeah, I think he was just out of his mind and he needed a good punch to bring him to his senses. So I was fine with it. And I think the ending was quite sweet because, you know, in his mind he's separated from his wife.
Yeah.
Can't cope. And Helena obviously invites him back to his apartment, I think. Because she would get in touch, or somebody would get in touch because he was injured, perhaps at death's door. Yeah. And yeah, when you're at that point, it's nice to have friends about. So it felt right to me.
Okay.
And it was they reminisce. There's a nice moment between the two of them, and they kind of reminisce. And
with Marion.
Yeah, it's quite poignant, I thought. And it shows that they're both getting older, and yeah, it's a nice moment to end the film on, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I've said all I need to say about that, but I just felt it was a little bit dour of an ending for me. As far as I'm concerned, Indy riding off with his father and Salah off into the sunset with The Last Crusade.
Yeah, okay, that was a perfect ending.
That's me.
that was okay, perfect. That was a perfect ending.
There'll be more adventures to come, but you're not going to see them, but you can just imagine them, and Indy's off into the sunset. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, this one was just a little bit dour and depressing, and I don't know if I want too much characterization of Indiana Jones in my Indiana Jones films, because they served pretty well with the first three without too much of that kind of stuff. I get that, like, when he's at the age that he is, you kind of need to make a different kind of film. And for me, that's maybe the crux of the question. Should we have made these films, these last two films? And
Yeah.
I think you can tell what my answer would be.
But I've been looking for this all my life.
So we'll give our ratings.
Yeah.
Logs on the fire for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Will I go first?
If you want.
Yeah, 2 out of 5 for me.
Shocking.
And a first viewing, I mean, I've taken on board what you've said, and I will watch it again at some point.
How many would you give Crystal Skull?
2 out of 5.
Same.
Yeah, the same. I don't. I think they're for me, they don't work for different reasons. They're bad films, but for different reasons. It's not like it's because Dial of Destiny is bad in the same way that Kingdom of Crystal Skull is. And I think, like I said to you, I was just kind of throughout the whole thing, more than I was with Crystal Skull, which kind of went little kind of like bits of, well, it was okay, and then lots of sort of massive chasms that even Indy wouldn't be able to swing across.
I'm going to go for 4.
Okay.
For a first viewing, maybe watch it again and say, okay, maybe I'll take it down a notch. But yeah, that's how I felt watching it. I really got into it. Yeah, I just felt, thank goodness, a better Indiana Jones adventure.
I hope that when I watch it a second time, I feel similar. Even a snaffle more would be good.
And that's despite, not being overly impressed with some of the action and
Sure.
overuse of de-aging and the length of it, which were little problems as well for me. But
Sure.
I think there's a lot more to it than that. And I thought Harrison Ford was great. He still is Indy, still plays him well.
Yeah, Indiana Jones for me, I know they're talking about, future prospects and stuff like that, but I mean, I watch an Indiana Jones film, 50% for Indiana Jones and 50% for Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones.
Who is this man? I'm her godfather.
Hardly related.
Get back!
Well, that's all we've got for you today. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Check it out if you want or not, and we'll see you next time.